Welcome to the Weekly Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Owen, and today I have a special guest who I'm going to let himself introduce himself real quick. Go right ahead.
What is going on, guys? This is Caleb. You might know me as Kielpro88 on YouTube. Basically, I make a lot of the film. If you watch or follow the draft, I upload film on most of the offensive prospects that are coming up in this year's draft, and then I do that for Dynasty Nerds. I write for fantasy football for them and whatnot. And I do my own show, the Kielpro Dynasty Show, which is fantasy football. So obviously, football, a big passion of mine, and I'm excited to talk to you about some prospects here today.
Yeah, I am too. I usually on the shows we do, we don't really delve into the draft as much. So, and I'm a super big draft nerd, so I was kind of happy to get someone on here who also likes to delve into that kind of stuff. So, since you do deal with the offensive prospects more, I have a few that I've picked out that I want to just discuss a little bit. Whether it's because I think they're just an interesting talk about, or because we may have some differences. Because I know you have your big board out there in your description of your videos.
Yeah.
I've taken a peek at that. I agree with most of it. I do have a few qualms. That's why we're gonna discuss that a little bit. First up, something we're kind of universal in agreement with here. Kyle Pitts, phenomenal player this draft class.
Yeah, I've been probably doing like these big boards and scouting for about 5 years now, and he's the best tight end I've watched so far. Just the receiving, he's definitely the best receiving tight end we've seen easily. He could line him up at wide receiver for an NFL team, and he'd be a number one for you. And you just look at him; he's got the size, he's got a massive catch radius, and his ability in contested catch areas too, as well. Where even if he doesn't separate for some reason, he's able to make those tough catches. And I just think he's going to be such a mismatch at the NFL level that I'm really interested to see where he goes in the draft, because this is a guy that could just be a game changer for an NFL offense.
Yeah, and he ran I think it was like a 4.4 at his pro day this past week. Something like
Mm-hmm.
that, something insane for someone who's like 6'5", 2 something should not be able to run. Yeah, he's pretty insane. I think even if I was to rate him as like a wide receiver, I think he'd still be like the top, just like wide receiver in general on my board. He's phenomenal. The hookups are the pull-ups are with his blocking, but like even then he has he's big enough that even if he puts a little bit of effort into it, he's gonna move some guys, some lower DBs, things like that. But if you're drafting him, you know that's not what you're getting him for.
Yeah, it's not like it's a glaring weakness for him either. Like, he can do it, he can put the effort into it, but like you said, if you're taking this guy, he's going to be your weapon on offense. I sort of compared him to like a Darren Waller, who's just sort of a mismatch nightmare for you to cover, and Kyle Pitts is like on another level of him. I guess the only thing is we've seen how long it takes tight ends to develop at the NFL level. It usually takes a few years before they really come onto the scene, but I I think Pitts could maybe be a mold breaker in that sense, where year one we're already seeing his potential.
Yeah, I definitely like the Darren Waller comparison. He's a little bit more of a thinner tight end who can line up outside of wide receiver and create mismatch opportunities for you. What is the highest you could see him going in this draft following this new 49ers trade? What do you think is the highest you could go?
Um, I'm interested to see. I would say maybe possibly six if the Dolphins are in love with someone there that it made sense to trade back and then trade back up to get. So I don't know if they have a receiver in mind. I think that would make the most sense possibly. But like I said, Kyle Pitts is that kind of guy that could be a game changer on offense and be a safety valve for a guy like Tua. So I'd say six is the earliest, and the latest would probably be, I'd say, the Chargers at 13. If we put Kyle Pitts in the Chargers offense with Justin Herbert, that would be scary to look at next season.
Yeah, and especially that'd be something insane for like someone who does like the fantasy stuff like you would do.
Oh
If
yeah.
Justin Herbert's got that, he'd be. I'd expect his stock and Pitt's stock to be as high as ever just from adding that one piece into the offense. Now, like a month or so ago, I went into an Atlanta Falcons subreddit and I posted saying, "Am I crazy thinking that the Atlanta Falcons could go number 4, Kyle Pitts?" And I got like an EV 50-50 split where I got people who were ready to crucify me and other people who were saying, "Yeah, that makes sense." My reasoning was they have Matt Ryan for at least another 2 seasons, especially after his contract rework. Arthur Smith is coming over after running a power run heavy offense where he likes to run 2 tight end sets. They have Hayden Hurst, but you get that Jonnu Smith type player in Kyle Pitts, who is going to be even better than Jonnu Smith. And that was one of the arguments I heard was,
Mhm.
Jonnu Smith only had like 400 receiving yards, this and that. I'm like, yeah, but you can also pair him up. You can run the 2 tight end sets while also being able to pass out of it. And then that just runs into what Arthur Smith likes to run. And I wouldn't be opposed to taking him at 4th overall, but I think it's gonna happen? Probably not. But I feel like adding him with Julio and Calvin Ridley and everyone else they have over there with like if you're gonna ride this out with Matt Ryan, you just might as well just build it around him and then focus defense later in the draft. Obviously, you want to go defense with that first pick, but like if you can't trade out of there, which you probably will be able to now with how the quarterbacks are looking to fall, Kyle Pitts is probably the best offensive player I have outside of like Trevor Lawrence. So, so if you're looking to get someone for the offense, if you can't, it's reaching a defense, I wouldn't be opposed to them getting him.
Yeah, that's an interesting spot there. It'd be tough to pass them up at 4, but they're in that perfect spot where they could trade down. I mean, that's another thing. Like, are they looking for the heir to Matt Ryan? Like, what are they looking at in terms of years for him to be the guy there? So are you going to shoot for it this season or maybe be more like the Packers where they drafted Jordan Love, like get a few years out ahead of it because you're not going to be in this position probably again next season to take a top quarterback. So they're going to be in very interesting spot what they do there. If they stay there, I could see them possibly taking quarterback or going Kyle Pitts. They're in an interesting spot, but they could get a ton of value if they want to trade down from that pick. So
yeah, and then there's so many things they can do. It's like I think the Falcons and the Bengals were the biggest winners of that trade just because the Falcons now have a bunch of leverage for people to trade up to get quarterbacks, and the Bengals are like sitting there like, okay, well the one team that was going to take either Penei Sewell, Kyle Pitts, or Jamar Chase ahead of us is gone now. So we get literally every pick out of any other player as long as Atlanta doesn't take one of those guys anyway.
Yeah, I'm hoping the Bengals. I hear a lot of Chase talk, but I just want them to grab Sewell probably if he's there. I just protect your quarterback. We saw what happened last season. We didn't really get to see him grow into that role because he was just constantly under pressure, and I think that would open things up for Mixon, who has struggled behind that line. I mean, I know you want to go get a weapon for him, but T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, that's not bad. I mean, they probably need to add someone second, third round if they don't, but it'll be interesting if they pair up Jamar and Burrow or if they decide to lock in that offensive line.
Yeah, you do get that chemistry already there with Jamar and Burrow just from time at LSU, but this draft class is so deep, you can find starters in the second and third round, which brings me up to my next point. So I want to get your opinion. I was looking at your big board, specifically the wide receivers, because I was delving into wide receivers. That's probably my most scouted position right now. I have almost 100 players scouted. I think I have 100 exactly right now after last night. So I think I have 19 wide receivers, mostly using your film, to be honest with you.
Glad someone can make use of it.
But I have two wide receivers I want to ask you questions about. The first up is Dwayne Eskridge. I saw you had him rated, I think, like 73. You had him dropped a little lower, right around that like mid-tier kind of wide receiver. I want to hear your opinions on him and his play right now.
Yeah, so this is an interesting, the whole wide receiver thing for me is, so I've always been like a raw film guy where it's like just watching film, not factoring in a ton outside of that. And then I've sort of been looking into some analytics stuff, and he was an interesting player to look at because he sort of came out of nowhere where you had like these top guys, like everyone's sort of been monitoring, and then Dwayne Eskridge starts popping up, and then he blows up at the Senior Bowl, and he looked great at the Senior Bowl. And of course, I had to go out there and make some film for him because there was nothing out there. Like he sort of came out of nowhere. He wasn't on our boards really, but he's a player I really like. Like he's quick, he's fast, like he can do a lot for you. The big thing for me was, and this might be more as my bias as like a dynasty fantasy football player where you're looking for younger assets, is that he's going to be 24 when he's drafted, which is incredibly old for a receiving prospect. I mean, Juju's onto his second contract and he's the same age as him. Like he's been in the league for a while. And it's a guy who was a cornerback just a couple of years ago too. So he's still in that transitioning phase a bit. He played in the max. So, I mean, I don't want to gripe on that too much, but that's also something to factor in. So there's a couple things that play here, and it's tough because I really like his game and his film is super fun. He brings plus stuff as a returner as well. I just think, there's a little risk there with him. He's kind of undersized too, but I could see him being like a really nice slot guy, number 2 in an offense. Just got to see where the NFL values him.
Yeah, I'm super high on him. I'm probably a lot higher than most people are.
Sure.
I understand what you mean by with his negatives and things like that because he is older, which is like you see like players like Kenny Golladay this year. he just got only his second contract, but he's already 27. So people are like, okay, that's a little concerning. He's a little older, plus he got an injury history. But I think the one that it's funny you said the negative for him was, or one of the types he had was that he's brand new to the wide receiver position, so he just transferred over from cornerback. I think that's more of a plus in this scenario, in this situation, because one, being a cornerback, he's able to, when you watch the film, he's able to set up his releases and gain separation because he knows that the qualities and the traits that cornerbacks do, or the little things they do in their game to try to get an advantage on his wide receivers, knowing that information from being a cornerback himself. So when you see, like, he knows when a cornerback's about to do a punch, he'll be able to shift his feet real quick to get a good advantage point on that. And he has the speed and the quickness to get around guys to be able to get separation and has that very quick speed. His route running is a little concerning for me, especially on like the comeback routes. Sometimes he'll be crisp. The other times he'll take a couple extra steps at the top of his route to stem back and like be able to actually make the play on it. And that gives the cornerback a little bit of opportunity to do it. But most of the time, they're respecting his speed so much. They're playing so far off. Even if he takes a couple extra steps to get back on the comeback, he still has plenty of room to be able to catch the ball, make a move, or just get separation for his quarterback easily. Now, the Mac problem is a thing I did take into consideration just because the tape I watched him, it was like, these guys aren't NFL talent. They're not world beaters.
No.
But I mean, you got to put some value into like the traits you look at. I like his hands. I like his speed, I like his quickness. Usually his route running is pretty good. He ran a kind of a more of extensive route tree at Western Michigan. He's able to, even though he is a smaller bodied receiver, he's able to catch pretty good out of his frame, similar to like a Jalen Waddle. Smaller bodied receivers with that speed, but they're able to go up and catch above the rim kind of thing. A good one I want to point to is, I can't remember who they're facing. I can't remember who it was, but it was like there was a Hail Mary situation. And he was able to get into between the corner and safety and able to out-jump for a corner who was taller than him. I think he had like an inch or two on him. He was able to out-jump and basically lost his corner in a clutch situation. He's got versatility. He's kind of like, he's like a smaller, faster Laviska Shenault, kind of. I like to compare him to.
Sure.
Just because he's got that gadget, because you can run him on sweeps, you can run him on wildcat quarterback. He took a couple snaps at returner, receiver. You just get the ball in his hands, he'll go. The age thing, like I said, that's probably my biggest hang up with them. The Mac, you had guys like Corey Davis come out that you can see that their talent can transition from that lower level competition and shine in the higher levels. So I'm kind of higher on him. I like him as like this kind of smarter, still growing receiver because he's only had so long as a receiver and he's still as good as he is right now. Give him a couple more years of learning it, especially in the NFL coaching tree and offense. I think he'll be even better than that. If like I don't know, I see some Tyreek Hill in his game, but like at the same time, I don't want to compare him that highly to him just because he's so good. I don't know. I just he's definitely someone I could see going a lot higher than most people have him going.
Yeah, I've got him right now. I have him in the third round range as like a potential starter. And you bring up a lot of good points. Like even as a transitioning from corner, we might still not have seen the best he can do at receiver. And another thing, the Mac, like that actually gets overblown a little bit because I was a huge fan of like Deontay Johnson and Corey Davis coming out of college. Like, those are my favorite guys. And there's like the stuff you can see on tape, like maybe the corners aren't as physical with them, but you see the ability to get open, even though, you know, the defense maybe isn't as another level, but they dominate at this level. And the above the rim catches, I noticed a lot because their quarterback just loved to just throw it right over his head. And every time he would pluck it out. And I was like, all right, I'm impressed. And for a smaller guy like that, he's got pretty good hands. So that's another plus for him too. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm down on him. I don't quite have him maybe in the tier some two, but he's a fun player. I'm excited to see where he goes. And like you said, he's a versatile guy too. So you can use him in the return game or on end arounds. Really the age is just the thing. I'm interested to see how much teams factor that in. But otherwise, like I had a blast watching him on film. He was a good surprise. So
he's really fun to watch. I'm really the thing I'm most curious to see is how teams value the age thing because you saw like a couple years ago Hayden Hurst gets drafted at age like 25, 26.
Yeah.
So there's some teams that value it, some teams that don't. It gets kind of confusing. But switching from a smaller body receiver to one of the bigger body receivers in this draft class, we're going to talk about someone who I actually haven't seen talked about much at all by like these big time like draft analysts. Like I haven't heard Matt Miller or anyone talk like that. The Draft Network doesn't even have him on their board at all. Like, you can't find him. In the 400-plus players they have, he's not on there at all.
Yeah.
Tammorion Terry, the wide receiver out of Florida State. When I saw that, I was like, is he even in this draft class? When I Googled it up, it was like, yeah, he's...
I know.
He's
Same thing.
He's in here. What I think is the biggest hang-up is that people are forgetting he exists because last season, season 4, people were hyping up like, oh, this guy's pretty good. He could potentially he's getting some draft buzz, even though he's not going into the draft this year. Then this season, I'm not sure if I got all the facts straight on it, but from the gist I would have got from what I'm reading is that Terry played 6 games, and with the whole COVID proceedings, things like that, Florida State wasn't really performing the COVID procedures like as they were supposed to be, and he was getting mad at it. So he had to blow up with the coach about it, and that's when he decided, oh yeah, he basically opted out after the 6 games because he didn't like how Florida State's coaching staff was handling the COVID situation. So that's why he opted out. So some people were like thinking like, oh, maybe he has like he's trouble. He like doesn't mesh with the coaches and stuff like that. He's a troublemaker. I'm like, well, I mean, in this scenario, from what I've read, it's like this isn't like him just being an ass to be an ass. He's going out there and he has genuine concerns and that his coaches aren't meeting. So that's probably why. That's from what I can research and assume that's what I got from why he's not there. But other than that, I really like his skill set, and I wanted to get your opinion on him. I know you have him around the same area as Dwayne Eskridge, so I wanted to hear your opinions on him.
Yeah, he is an interesting player because he was sort of off, like nobody was talking about him either, and he was kind of off my radar a little bit too. And then one night, finally sat down with a few friends. We usually watch film together, and we're like, all right, let's put on some Terry. And it was 2019 film because there's not really much 20 out there. Like you said, what was going on there and with him opting out. But what we saw from 2019, he's just a specimen, this size speed kind of freak that you want. This is the guy where it's like, do you have the balls to take this guy? Because the floor is very low. Like he's very raw, but the ceiling, like you see the athletic ability and everything with him. Just as a raw athlete, like this is sort of a kind of a guy like, I'd like to see him maybe go to Kansas City where they're looking someone with upside. But he's got the inconsistencies, like as a route runner, catching the ball even. But he's got the physical traits where you just want to see him succeed. So, yeah, I've got him in like that potential starter spot, 3rd round as well, where I have Eskridge, where I could see him being one of the top receivers from this class, or I could see him not being in the NFL in 3 years.
Yeah, I like to comp him to DK Metcalf from the draft when he was in it, because he's just this tall, built, fast. Like you look at him and he's like this kind of string bean, and you think like, oh, he's not gonna be he's probably gonna be like this slower plotting. Then he outruns corners on film, and it's like, how the hell is he? I don't know if it's his long legs, but I don't know. He's just a physical specimen. And like you said, you watched 2019 film. In 2019, I think he had like led the NCAA in receiving yards on screens or something like that, or like in short area things, because you get the ball in his hands, he played Wildcat quarterback. I don't think he returned things, but he was on punt coverage and things like that. He's another versatile guy, and I think I have him a lot higher than most people do. Like I have him higher than Eskridge. Eskridge I have a little like higher than some, but like not crazy high. But I just think that the traits and just taking the DK Metcalf situation where people are like, oh, his route running, he only runs, deep 9 routes and things like that. He doesn't have like the comebacks or the double moves in his repertoire, but he has all these physical traits. And people were like, oh, I guess not. And then he fell to like the late 2nd round, and now they drafted him, and he was like 1,500, 1,400 receiving yards this year.
Yeah.
If you can get him in a situation like Seattle did, where you pair him up with a good quarterback and a good offensive scheme, I think he can be that kind of player. So I'm not trying to get myself fooled twice again for this. And again, with DK, the same thing was he had like injury concerns, so he didn't really play that much his senior year. So it was like, oh, he's an unknown, this and that. Same thing with Terry. I just think the parallels are eerily similar, where I can see a projected career path like his, but I can also see the potential for him to have that falling out, like you're saying, where like he could be out of the league in 3 years because he doesn't work with the coaches, doesn't want to put work in, because he definitely has areas of improvement he needs to get.
Yeah, as I've watched, I've gotten burned on size speed guys like this before, where I get so excited by the raw talent, and then they'll fall to like the 4th, 5th, 6th round, and then we just don't hear from again. Like DGB comes to mind, Joel Green Beckham from Missouri. Like he lit it up, and I was like, this guy is the next top star in the league, and then it just sort of falls apart. But I think if he goes to the right situation where he probably, I don't know if he could start right away, but he could slowly work his way into an offense. If he goes somewhere where he agrees with the coaching staff and how they're doing things, obviously, yeah, this is a guy with one of the highest potential out of any receiver in this class, and I'll be really interested to see where the NFL values him, because if he goes like day 2, round 2 or 3, like his value skyrockets, I think, because they're obviously believing in him. But if he goes on day 3, you might wonder where we're at with him.
Yeah, I like that. So like teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bucks, people who have receivers like Godwin, and there's like how Godwin's on a franchise tag. The Chiefs need like McCole Harmon's not really working out as well as they thought they would. The Bills are having Cole Beasley and now Emmanuel Sanders who are older. They are going to need to look to youth to replenish that. These teams who are smart at drafting and are going to be looking to get a wide receiver who doesn't need to play right now essentially, but like 2 or 3 years down the road can step in and be that number 2 or number 1 guy. This could be a kind of steal for them, and like if he drops like the 4th, 5th, 6th round and they pick him up, I have high expectations for it because those are good coaching staffs and good positions to be put in for him. And I also have had that hang up on falling in love with size speed guys. The less said about Hakeem Butler, the better.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, that was a learning lesson for a lot of us too.
Yeah, I thought, I was like, wow. I was like pining. I was like, because I'm a Bills fan. I'm like, oh, we don't have. This is before we had number 1 receiver. Josh Allen was throwing to practice squad players, and I'm like, draft this guy.
Gosh.
And then I'm watching the draft, and he falls to the 5th round. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, you spent a 4th round pick on like, I don't even remember that year. I can't remember who their 4th round pick was, but like, I was like, why wouldn't you grab him? And I was so mad. But now he's on. I don't even know what he's on. He got cut from the Cardinals at the beginning of this season. He was on the Giants for a hot second. I don't even know where he is anymore.
I heard he was maybe transitioning to tight end. I was like, well, maybe career revival, but I think it's kind of over at this point.
Real quick thing before, because you said transition to tight end. Real quick thing before we jump to the next thing. I've been wanting to tell someone about this for a while. So I got my brother really into draft stuff as well. He got really into it, and I was into it the year before Josh Allen and Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold draft. He was into that draft. I think it was 2018. That was his first draft. He really got into it. And again, we're both Bills fans, and we're watching the quarterbacks because we knew, we're probably gonna be taking quarterback this draft. And he comes in my room one night and he says, I just got done watching Josh Allen's tape. I don't know if it was your guys' tape or if you guys were putting stuff up at that point, but he was watching Josh Allen tape. And he said, it wouldn't surprise me if this guy transitions to a tight end sometime in his career and be a flop. I'm like, you're stupid, but okay, I get it. He's a high athletic guy. And then we draft him, and then he becomes like an MVP candidate this last season. I'm like, so I bring it up to him. I'm like, hey, remember the time when he ever tries talking quarterbacks? I'm like, remember the time you tried to tell me Josh Allen was going to be a tight end?
I mean, it's almost a compliment to him with his athleticism, but it's also like, come on, but that Josh Allen was another one of those prospects where it's like you're shooting for the stars with this guy. He's got all the talents in the world. You just got to see if you can hone it in, and I'm glad to see Buffalo has. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in football.
Yeah, he's really fun to watch. So going back to this season now, the draft, not draft. Let's step away from the draft for a second. Go to free agency. The cap dropped a little bit, so teams had to really be frugal with their spending, but there were still some big contracts ended up, big holes filled. If out of all the moves made, like the big ones most people know about, or even one you could probably pull out that most people wouldn't know about that you think is going to be that, which one is the most impactful to the draft, or like maybe like the first round of the draft that you think will come into play and like change how one team's going to draft previous to the free agency period?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with probably a boring one here, but the Patriots, because just what they've been doing this offense on the offseason on the offensive side, they brung in all these players. They were pretty depleted of anything for Cam Newton to throw to, and now they bring in not only Jonnu Smith but also Hunter Henry, two of the top tight end free agent targets. They get Nelson Aguilar, who's solid, had sort of a nice little revive there in Vegas. Kendrick Bourne's all right. So they bring in all these weapons. They're improving everywhere. I think, they were maybe one of the top teams to go draft a receiver for sure. Or if Pitts was there, definitely grab him. Now Pitts is off the board. And I would say, with Bill Belichick, how he drafts in the first round, I think he might never take a receiver there again because N'Keal Harry has completely fallen off the face of the earth. He's not even a thing anymore. So I was picking them to maybe go receiver or tight end in the draft, and now that sort of shifts away to are they drafting the heir to Cam Newton? It sounds like they might have to trade up to do that now, but yeah, I think that kind of shifts away from maybe the offensive move I was thinking they would do.
Yeah, so with the Patriots, even before they did this whole free agency splash, I looked at their cap and I'm like, they're gonna get some free agency guys. So like my mock drafts I posted to the channel or posted on the Reddit or whatever, I consistently had them going like defense. Like I had like Zayvon Collins, that kind of Belichickian linebacker kind of guy, or an edge rusher like Gregory Rousseau, someone who can come and develop. Or a corner or something like J.C. Horn. I wouldn't be surprised if they go corner because Stephon Gilmore's getting older. He's coming off a big injury. Your linebackers are coming back. They're older, having just opted out. I think it was Hightower that just opted out. He's coming back. You bring Kyle Van Noy back in. He's a year older now. He's got more wear and tear on him. You might want to start drafting guys, and that's what Belichick does. Is he draft guys under defense so he can let starters go just to be able to replace them with cheaper options. So I was always adamant on like taking defense there because I was anticipating them do what they did here. So I was pretty confident in that scenario. What I think is the most impactful one, maybe not the best signing, but one that's going to change how this team is going to draft in the first round definitely is Bud Dupree going to the Tennessee Titans. Because there was every mock draft I would read out of from Lance Zierlein or anyone from NFL.com, CBS Sports, they always had whoever the best edge rusher on the board was, he's going to Tennessee. They need edge rusher opposite Harold Landry. They need someone there. They go and they pay Bud Dupree. I think it's like $18 million a year. It's something crazy.
Yeah, it's a ton. It's a ton.
I'm not going to agree that it was a great contract coming off for someone coming off a torn ACL, but I think they believe they have that edge rusher set for right now. Now all these drafts are looking at, are they going to go offensive line to replace Isaiah Wynn because of that whole fiasco? Are they going to go corner because they released everybody, all but one starter in the secondary? Are they going to go wide receiver because they lost Corey Davis? There's so many other ways they can go now with that first round pick, where before it was just edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher constantly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pick because Harold Landry was in a tough situation where he didn't really have anyone offsetting him. Like, he played a ton of snaps this past year and just didn't get a ton of production. And it's tough to when you don't have anyone helping you, really. And you bring in Bud Dupree, who's coming off the torn ACL, but he was having a really good season before he got hurt. And I'd agree the contract was probably too much for a guy coming in off an ACL injury. But that's a really good choice. That opens it up to, they had most of their top pass catchers leave, and Jonnu and Corey Davis. So I've seen a lot of mocks putting Bateman there, which would be a perfect fill-in for a Corey Davis right there. But yeah, it kind of opens things up for them. I'd agree with you there.
Yeah, the Patriots one, I was really debating doing that one. I'm glad you did that one because I know that's the big storyline everyone's talking about, and I really wanted to hear your opinion on what they probably would go there. And another one I was thinking was just the most recent was Galladay to the Giants. Most people had maybe a wide receiver going 11. There's been some moves like that where it's these teams take a pick and it's or they sign a guy and it's well, this pick we had cemented in. Oh, they're going wide receiver. Oh, they're going edge rusher. Oh, they're going offensive playmaker. Now it's totally blown up because it's well, now they have those guys. Unless they're going to draft to supplement them when their contracts are up, they might as well go somewhere else and then look later in the draft, especially for wide receiver, which you can grab we said in the second, third. There's some pretty good options there, developmental wise. Sticking with the offensive weapons, we're just going to bounce real quick to this. With the running backs, there's consensus that there's a couple guys that are pretty good. They probably would have been first-round picks last year, might be first-round picks this year. With Etienne, Harris, Javonte Williams are the top three. There's those three, and there's a draw. I've seen different people rank them different ways. I just wanted to get your opinion on how you ranked them and who is your top back and what maybe separates them for you.
Yeah, Najee Harris is my RB1. He has been for a while, and I just love this guy's game. He reminds me of a Steven Jackson type back where he's 6'2", 230, just a bulldozer. And he got even, he probably could have declared last season and gone pretty high. Comes back for the next year, which for some purposes, extra wear and tear on the body isn't great. Kind of hurts that a little bit. I think he's got almost 100 more carries than Etienne and Javonte, which you have to factor in. But on the field, I think he's the best running back I've watched. And it's not just the bulldozer ability, it's how agile he is for his size. And I think he's the best receiving back in this draft. I mean, I've seen so many plays where he's in contested catch opportunities and he makes them, or he gets it out in space and he'll make a guy miss. Like everyone likes to talk about Etienne as like the receiving back out of the backfield. Like actually, all three of these guys are really good out of the backfield as receivers. But I think Najee is just for his size, he's just on another level. And um, you know, the thing with him, maybe it takes him a little bit to get up to speed, but he's kind of like a Derrick Henry in that respect, where he gets up to speed and he's a load to take down. So you get into like cold weather games, I wouldn't want to tackle this dude. So, yeah, Najee Harris, a little bit older than the other two, but I think he's just one of the better running back prospects I've watched in a while, and I'm interested to see where he goes in the draft.
Yeah, I'm interested. I've kind of mocked him to like the Steelers just because that hard nosed kind of running back.
Oh yeah,
I've seen that's kind of a popular one. I'm a little different from you. I have them all within like a point and a half of each other, so it's very close. On my big board, they're like 1 to 2 spots away from each other. But I actually have, so looking at, I'll go 3 to 1. So I actually have Harris at 3 because he is older. He's got the more wear and tear on him, which is running back is one of the only positions where you can actively look at me like, okay, if they have so many years on them or so much time on them, or their age actually factors in pretty decently just because they age very fast just because it's so physical. I like Harris's game with his receiving ability, his quickness, and his size. And he does have great speed for his size, but he doesn't have like that breakaway home run hitting kind of speed. If he's going to get a 99-yard touchdown like a Derrick Henry, he's going to have to do it by stiff arming and breaking tackles, things like that. He's not going to hit a hole and be able to break away like someone like Etienne or Williams is going to be able to. And then, but I do like his pass blocking. I like his ability as a third down back. Usually backs of that size, like Derrick Henry, aren't able to stay out there on third downs and be a threat as a receiving back, which I think that's why they're in this level of tier. Now, the reason I put Etienne above him at number 2, and I have obviously leaves Williams as number 1. I like Etienne as a receiving back, and he's got that speed and agility, but he also has a bunch of that wear and tear on him as well, being a 4-year starter at Clemson. He came back for another season, put another year of wear and tear on his body. He's up there in carries. He's kind of a smaller back, so especially those carries are going to impact him a little more. But I just like that he brings that quickness and things you see in Harris, but he also has the breakaway speed that you can see. But I can see either of them being flipped. Now, Javonte Williams, I love his combination because Javonte Williams is bigger than Travis Etienne, a little smaller than Harris, but he also has more of that breakaway speed than Harris will. He's no slouch as as a receiver, and one thing he has over Etienne as a blocker and pass protection, Etienne isn't really all that good at that at this moment in time. He's more of just like a cutter kind of guy, where Javonte Williams will actually stand a guy up. I liken him to like a Kareem Hunt kind of guy, where you can hit him on the outside. He can do outside zone reads, even though they had a guy like Michael Carter who can do those, like he's the big home run hitter. He could do those plays even despite them having him. And I don't know why. I mean, it kind of makes him obsolete, but like at the same time, you want to run. You don't want to put too much tread on him. He doesn't have as much tread in his tires as the other two guys have. I'm pretty sure he's equal to receiving as Etienne. I think Harris is the best receiver, but I think they're not too far behind him. He's got the speed that Harris lacks. He's got the size that Etienne lacks. And he's got way less carries than the both of them. So I think just for those traits, which I personally value best for running backs, because they all have great vision, they all have great cutting abilities, great, they have all these things in common. But from what they have that differentiates them, I think I like Javonte Williams' skill set a little more than the other two. But I can flip Etienne and Harris and be totally 100% comfortable with it. I just think Williams, I think, is going to be my number 1 heading into the draft.
All right, yeah, there's a case for any of these 3 guys. The guys I kind of compare them to, Etienne to like an Alvin Kamara type, where you want to get him in space where he can make plays. And then Javonte Williams, I have to a Chris Carson, who's like a big bruising back, good contact balance, and he's sort of adding that receiving ability to his game as well. I think Etienne's probably easily the worst pass protector. Javonte was a little bit inconsistent for me. I know there's a play against, I think it was Boston College, where he just kind of flopped and it led to I don't know if it was a turnover from Sam Howell, but it was a little messy. But he's got the makeup to be a solid and pass pro. I think though I wish Najee would have ran his 40, because I think those two would have been close. I mean, Javonte I think ran his today, and it was like a 4.56. I want to say it was like a late 4.5s, early 4.6s. So I'm not sure. like on tape he looks pretty fast, but maybe it doesn't quite translate to that. I think Najee and Javante might be a little closer on speed than you're maybe leaning towards, but there's a case for all three. I have Javante as my number two, and then Etienne as three. I think the first two definitely have three down potential. Etienne probably gets there, and then there's a bit of a drop off after that. I really like Kenneth Gainwell. He's probably still one guy I'm in on as a running back, but after that everyone has their own sort of opinions on these like probably third, fourth round guys.
So Javonte Williams had a 4.57 and a 4.55. That changes it a little bit for me. I liked what I saw on tape for speed wise, but seeing that, I don't think Harris would have probably been that much far off. So I might have to go, like I've done like double checks on these guys, but I might have to go back and check it one more time because I know Harris. Like I said, they're all very close to me. But I wasn't particularly in love with Harris's speed. Where I just like there was plays where I saw on Williams tape where I was like, oh, that's pretty good for speed wise, breakaway wise. But I might have to go seeing those numbers. I might either have to go look back at it again, or maybe he put on weight. I'm not sure. I'll have to probably
it was a bit of an eye opener. I thought he'd be a little quicker than that.
Yeah.
But still, for him, I think being younger, having less carries, like splitting that backfield with Michael Carter was great for the NFL because both those guys never really had a full workload, and they balanced each other really well in that offense. So if I were to make a case for Javante to be RB1, and he's not too far behind Najee and mine, it'd be that less wear and tear, and maybe you get into that second contract with Javante where Najee, you get into contract number 2 and he's going to be like 26, 27. He's already going to have a lot of tear. Like, are you going to reinvest in this guy where Javante, maybe you feel like he's got fresher legs still to keep playing for you?
Okay, so that's where we're going to end it here for analyzing some draft prospects here with Caleb or Kielpro88. You can find him on YouTube at the same thing, right? Kielpro88.
Yep, getting close to 1,000 subscribers. We'll hopefully get there before draft day, which would be sick.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, definitely go hit his stuff up. He's got great content. I use it on the daily for my scouting stuff. I think I saw on like Twitter about you may have like a podcast you're working on right now as well.
Yeah, just started doing that in the past few weeks. The Kielpro Dynasty Show. It's pretty much just like a quick hitting rundown. We've touched on all of the free agent signings and how they affect for fantasy and defensive player fantasy IDP. So yeah, definitely go check that out. Maybe I'll have you on too, return the favor and get this thing growing.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts on how this free agency is going to impact some of these teams. So I would definitely love to do that. All right. But other than that, so we're all good here. So we'll see you guys next time.